Hi, I'm Dr. Richard Pettyjohn. I've come here today to tell you a little bit about the FDA. I've worked at Bayer Healthcare Pharmaceuticals for about 8 years, and during that time I've been involved with many of the FDA inspections. I thought I'd start off today by telling you a little bit about the FDA. The United States Food and Drug Administration is known worldwide as the US FDA. The FDA is primarily responsible for protecting and promoting public health through the regulation and supervision of foods, drugs, cosmetics, and devices. The FDA is led by the Commissioner of Food and Drugs, appointed by the President with the advice and consent of the Senate. The FDA has 223 field offices and 13 laboratories located throughout the 50 states, Virgin Islands, and Puerto Rico. In 2008, the FDA opened offices in China, India, Costa Rica, Chile, and the United Kingdom, just to make sure that the drugs and the products that are coming from those places are definitely healthy and good quality. The FDA regulates more than $1 trillion worth of consumer goods, about 25% of consumer expenditures in the United States, so it's very, very important. This includes $466 billion in food sales, $275 billion in drugs, $60 billion in cosmetics, and $18 billion in vitamin supplements. In the years prior to the FDA, there were no regulations to protect the public from dangerous or ineffective drugs. Most federal laws concerning the FDA are part of the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act, first passed in 1938. The new law significantly increased federal regulatory authority over drugs by mandating a pre-market review of the safety of all new drugs, as well as banning false therapeutic claims in drug labeling without requiring that the FDA prove fraudulent intent. This law also granted extensive powers for the FDA to enforce post-marketing recalls of ineffective drugs. The Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act has been extensively amended since as a response to continuing problems in the field. An extreme example occurred in 1959 when thousands of babies were born deformed as a result of their mothers taking the drug thalidomide, which had been recommended for the treatment of nausea during pregnancy. The thalidomide tragedy resulted in the Kefauver-Harris Amendment to the law that required that all new drug applications demonstrate substantial evidence of the drug's efficacy for a marketed indication. This was the start of the FDA approval process in its modern form. In 1982, 7 people died after taking Tylenol that had been contaminated with cyanide that was added to the bottle after it was on the store shelf. This resulted in the recall of 31 million bottles of Tylenol capsules at a cost of more than $100 million to the manufacturer, Johnson & Johnson. The FDA responded with the issuance of the tamper-resistant packaging requirements for drug manufacturers. In addition, the Federal Anti-Tampering Act, passed in 1983, makes it a crime to tamper with packaged consumer products. Prior to the 1990s, only 20% of all drugs prescribed in the United States were tested for safety or efficacy in a pediatric population. For decades, most medicines prescribed to children in the U.S. were done so in a non-FDA approved off-label manner, with dosages extrapolated from adult data through body weight and surface area calculations. The 2002 Best Pharmaceuticals for Children Act allowed the FDA to request NIH-sponsored testing for pediatric drug testing. In 2011, risk minimization action plans were created to ensure risks of a drug never outweigh the benefits and implement periodic assessments of their program's effectiveness. In other words, if you take a drug to cure a cold, it should not cause arthritis. It seems obvious, but it was not clear at that time. As you can see, the U.S. government is not very good at predicting problems in advance, but they are quite effective at responding after a problem has occurred to try to ensure that the problem does not occur in the future. That's the role of the FDA.